So to throw a cup, we're going to use about 400 grams of clay. This is pre-kneaded, so when I've cut this off, I've made sure I haven't got any air bubbles in it, and I've kneaded it. So it's ended up in this little cone shape, and the spiral on the bottom is going in the same direction of the wheel. So I'm going to put that down into the centre of the wheel. Now, it's very important when you're throwing that you have a dry wheel. You don't want any water. Otherwise, this is going to slide around the wheel when you start working with it. All right, so we're just going to start by just getting a bit of water onto the surface of this clay. So that we start by centering. So we need to have the left hand anchored, so you can either anchor it on the top of this wheel bed here, or if you put a brick under your foot, if you get a brick and you put it under your foot, you can lift this knee up and you can anchor your arm into that knee. And basically with centering, this hand here, the left hand, this part here, the palm, is going to be pressing on this wall of the clay. We'll start by just applying a little bit of pressure. This hand here is just playing a bit of a support role. You really only want to put one pressure on a block of clay while you're on the wheel. If you put two pressures, you're going to be going off centre. So we'll just keep this water coming on. And to help with the kneading of the clay, I'll generally start by kneading it on the wheel, and that's called coning. So I'm going to apply some pressure with this hand, pushing forward to the centre of the dome, and I'm going to pull forward with this hand, and that's going to squeeze the clay up into a cone. So pushing that up there. And see how it's coming up high? So I'm going to do that one more time. It's just a firm pressure. So now I've got a cone, and I'm going to tip that top over a little bit and apply some pressure and push that down. And so what we've done is we've started getting all the platelets of clay going in a spiral. So I might do that one more time. It's only a small amount of clay. For a cup, it's about 400 grams. You could go up to 500 grams if you want a larger cup. So I'm pushing that up into a cone, pushing that over. And that means that if you're not a very good kneader, this will help you knead the clay, and it also helps you get the clay centred. So the aim now is we want to get this clay into a nice dome shape to start. So, a little bit more water. So now this part here, this hand is pushing forward, anchored here, and this hand, I'm going to put my little finger onto the top of that clay, and that's going to form this little curve here. Applying a little bit of pressure. Now I've got this dome shape, and it's not moving around, so that means that it's centred. Now if it was off centre, it would be like this. So you can see it's off centre. But now I'm going to apply that pressure, keeping this hand nice and steady, and now that is going to centre that dome. All right, so now we've got a centred dome, and it's kneaded, so we're ready to start. So we're going to throw a cup, which is basically a cylinder. And so when we're throwing, we try and think that we're just creating the inside shape of the object. We're not making the outside shape. Because when we turn the shape, after it's got to leather hard, that's when we will make the outside shape match the inside shape. So a cylinder will basically have a flat base. So the first thing we're going to do is create the base. So to do that, I'm going to rest both of my elbows down, little fingers on the wheel head, thumbs make a little well in the top of the clay. Little bit of water in there, thumbs going down, And then I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure to one of my thumbs, and the other thumb is just playing a support role. So the reason is that if you're applying two pressures onto the clay, it's going to go off centre. So we always just want to apply one force. So we'll just open that up a little bit more. I normally try and make my base a little bit wider than what I wanted in the end, because generally when you start working it, it's going to get smaller. So we're going to open it up. So I've opened it up a bit. Now I'm going to take it down a little lower. So I've got this arm here anchored, and that's going to hold steady this hand here, which is the working hand. And I'm going to put my middle finger into the middle of that pot and press down about 1/2 centimetre. If it gets sticky, put some water in there and pull that finger nice and slowly towards you. At this stage, the wheel's going fast and the finger's moving slow. That way you won't get any it'll be nice and smooth, and you won't be getting any line work through the work. So I've opened this up. I'm going to check the base of that pot to see the thickness. So I've got this needle tool. I'm going to pop that in, finger on the top, pull it out, and it's about 8 mils. So that's good. Anywhere from when you're starting, anywhere from say 7 mils to 1 centimetre is a good thickness for the base. All right, so now I'm going to get now that the base is narrow enough, I'm going to just work on the width of it. So I'm going to get my finger right into that corner, and then I'm going to do something called compress the base. So I'm going to use the 3rd and the 4th finger from the outside from 3 o'clock, because that's on the clock, that would be 3 o'clock. So from 3 o'clock, I'm going to slowly bring my fingers from the outside to the centre of the pot. And I'm going to do it again, so from the outside to the centre of the pot. This is called compressing the base, and if you don't do this, when the clay dries, you can get a little weak S-crack through the bottom of the pot, because you've pulled all that clay apart. So you've sort of pulled those platelets apart. So you've always got to make sure that you compress your bases. So you can do that with your fingers. You can use a wooden tool as well, if you wish. Now that we've got the base nice, we can start working on pulling up the side. So we work at 3 o'clock again. If we worked at 9 o'clock, you'd have the clay running into your fingernails and it wouldn't work. You want the clay running through your fingers. So we work at 3 o'clock, get a little bit more water onto that edge. All right, so now I'm anchored on this hand here. I'm going to use my 3rd and my 4th fingers. My thumbs are joined together. I'm going to place them at 3 o'clock and apply a little bit of pressure almost evenly and slowly bring them up together. So what you've seen is your hands become like a tool. So they press and then they come up together. The fingers aren't moving with the clay. The fingers are making the clay wall the same width. So they're not moving. So I'm going to do another pull-up. If you want to steady the top, if you've got a little bit of wave in the top, you could collar it a little bit with your hands like this. So my fingers would touch at the back and just pull a little bit towards me, especially the top, just to stabilise it all so it hasn't got any wobble. And if it's a little bit uneven, you could just do a little bit of pressure around the rim like that. So it's sort of pinching, a light pinch on the top and then this finger coming down. You've got to always be anchored no matter what you're doing. So if you're doing this or whatever, you've got to make sure that you're anchored or you're going to get off centre again. It's like driving a bus, and it'll all go everywhere. So we'll do another pull. So at 3 o'clock, hands always touching each other. Nice and steady off the rim. Don't go too fast off the rim. I'll take a little bit of moisture out from the inside. I think when you're starting, anywhere between, like 4 mils would be a very fine cup. And then if you went up to 8 mils, that would be quite a thick cup, but you could turn that away. It just depends on how much stability you need when you're first starting. I might do one more pull. So fingers down the bottom, so these fingers right down here, applying pressure. Coming up nice and steady off the top. So once you've pulled your clay up as much as you can do a little bit of shaping if you like. So I'll just take out some of that water from the base. So you might want to collar the top in a little bit. So I'll just collar the top. So see how the top's starting to come in? You could, wherever you apply pressure, it's going to show in the clay. It's a very, very slight pressure. So if you wanted to put a little mark down in here and press that in, a light pressure on the inside and a light pressure on the outside, so the hands one above the other, you're going to start changing your shape. If you want to belly that out, you want to put a little bit of pressure on the inside, just very slowly, and it's very light, and you start to change the shape there. If you want to get a little bit of a rim happening, little bit of an indentation, just very slight marks. So you can have a little play with your shape at that stage. And once you're happy with your shape, then we can prepare it to take it off the wheel. So to do that, we first want to make sure that inside the pot is dry. If you have water left on the inside of that pot, it's going to wet the base so that when you leave it to dry, it's just going to get soggy and probably crack. It's not going to dry evenly. We'll use the chamois, which I have here. There it is. Put that aside. So this is a little piece of chamois, and you can also use plastic, but chamois is ideal. And if you hold it with a little curve and very light, again, all these touches are very light, you put that around the top there. So your fingers really are touching either side, and the chamois is doing the curve over the top. And that will just take off all the sharpness of the rim. And that's important because otherwise when you glaze the pot, the glaze is going to cut on that sharp bit. And it's also a bit sharp on the lips. And then the last thing we're going to do is turn the base of that. So I've got this wooden tool here, and I'm going to hold it so that that angle is on the wheel. I'm just going to take a little bit away. So at this stage you can take a little bit away so that you've got somewhere to put the wire underneath, or you can turn this on the wheel so you don't have to come back and turn this later. So if you're doing production, you may not want to have to spend too much time turning. So you might come back, and if I hold this like a pencil, I might cut in here. I've got this 2 hands so it doesn't get stuck and jump away. And now I'm going to pull this away. Have your tool facing so that it's actually taking the clay away from the pot. If you're facing the wrong way, it will pile up on top of the pot. And so then we're ready to take this off the wheel. So I would normally just put a little bit of water at the back, take my wire, hold it with my fingers, and I drag that water underneath. You've got to really make sure that you've got your fingers dragging along the top of the wheel. You don't want the wire coming up through the pot. And some people, cut backwards, but quite often what can happen is you can come up too quickly and cut through the back of your pot. So safety first, dragging towards you. And once that water's underneath there, we can just, with our fingers coming straight off that side there, we can push that over off the wheel like that, and then we want to put it onto a board with a bit of newspaper. So that is how you throw a cup.